Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to record this for you to just, instead of just giving you the assignment, I'll do like a quick video where I basically read it to you and give you kind of my thoughts about it as I'm speaking, as I'm showing you it. So I asked this question, and it's going to be similar to if you took the course with me in the fall and we did the 2 digital workshops, right? So basically, I kind of have the course set up that there's the 5 quizzes that are related to the textbook chapters, but then I have these like 2 additional workshops for an attempt to kind of put some of these ideas into practice and actually like go deep into go deep into it. Erickson taught that psychological intimacy, right? And like I ranted for a long time in this course and last course about the idea of intimacy and how, these last few years have been a struggle. If Erickson, if we actually take him seriously and we actually take serious this idea that like intimacy is the most important developmental task of emerging adults, and it's like intimacy includes romantic intimacy, but it also includes like just depth of relationship in general, and having friends and having people around you that you care about, and having an ability to share experiences and debrief off each other. And I think one of the reasons the last few years has been hard on so many people is they've had to process so much stuff in isolation. It's like that's not how humans evolved to process things. We evolved to process things best when we're in situations where we trust the people around us and we can bounce things and problems, ideas and problems off of each other. It's like, so part of intimacy is like feeling like you are a part of the world around you, and that you're psychologically engaged with people. And I know I'm not like trying to say like all my relationships are perfect at all in any way. It's like, but that this is part of the goal. This is part of what you're trying to do. It's the opposite of like fake, phony, shallow relationships. And Erickson says like the threat of not developing that is experiencing isolation, is not developing that, not having relationships that lack this quality of psychological depth that is nourishing. So it's what happens if it's lacking nourishment. You can almost view it as like a malnourished relationship. Erickson taught that psychological intimacy is core to psychosocial development in young adults. What do you think about this idea, and how does this have relevance in 2023? How has the experience of lockdown, or you could take that as just like, how has this last year been for you, and how do you kind of intentionally build a path to work forward? And I'd like to give you some kind of personal application questions a bit, right? I could ask you a question like define this concept and how it relates to this concept, or it's basically just like descriptive. Something like this has more of a reflective element, because I want you to think about, if we take psychology seriously and if we actually think that these ideas are real and have application, like explore the relationship between intimacy and isolation. How does the concept of intimacy and isolation help us understand some of the current dynamic? And you can take, I'm kind of purposely leaving this question pretty wide open so that you can kind of hit this from whatever way you want. How can you link the ideas to your own experience, or you could talk about like how you saw it maybe influence other people, or you can talk about a show you saw related. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own life story, although it can be. You can talk about like kind of how you made sense of it. How did you make sense of these last few years? It's also like a little bit of a selfish assignment from my perspective. I find it interesting, right? It's like you're a group of emerging students that a lot of you are aiming at being in the future teachers. And you're also interested in psychology, but what I love is psychology theory, but psychology theory in the sense of like, how do I take this idea and operationalize it? That's a word I've always liked. So like, how do you take an idea and make it into a usable plan? How can you help this affect your own dynamic experience? How can you build an intentional path forward? And, I'm part of this is like, you can answer those questions. And if you answer the questions well, I'll give the mark. So it's not necessarily have to be 10, 10, 10, 10, but I'm just trying to build it out for you, that I want you to kind of get at this idea of what's the relationship between intimacy and isolation. Tell me about them. Tell me a little bit of maybe about Erickson, right? And this psychosocial idea, and this idea that your development goes through these stages, whether we're talking about basic trust in a child, or development of identity in a teen, or development of intimacy in an adult, and that your adulthood yeah, so like use the concepts of intimacy and isolation to help understand the current effects of pandemic. And I just want to kind of see where you go with this. So as you see, this is going to be due on March the 5th. Okay. If you've never had a class with me, I tend to give these three options. You can either do like a video kind of response or like a podcast kind of response to the question, where I would ask you to kind of have it doesn't have to be scripted word for word, but you should at the very least have like kind of main points that you're making and then kind of talk about them, sort of like how I do. And I'm asking you to be like kind of within the range of 10 minutes or less. And that's just really so that I can like spend time and actually watch all the full videos and break them down a bit. And if you go a bit over or under, it doesn't matter. And then the other option is, if you're not comfortable with that and want to do a more traditional essay, go for it, right? You can answer the 4 questions in a more traditional way, like an academic paper. I'm just saying I'd encourage you to do the first 2, especially if you haven't, and if you're nervous with it. I'm going to be the only one that sees it. I'm pretty like student friendly. Like I like the idea of you trying to push yourself to maybe do something you haven't done before. And I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I'm expecting that you take the assignment seriously and try your best. That's it. All right. Do you have any other information? Not really. Right. So I try to make these assignments, especially since I don't teach you in person. I don't really have the opportunity to do tons of back and forth, especially like live dialogue, obviously. I try to make the assignments relatively straightforward. I really am not trying for any trick here. Basically giving 10 marks on those 10 areas, 10 marks overall. This is worth 25% of your grade. So this and the other paper combined are worth, or the other assignment combined are worth 50%. And then each of the quizzes are 10%. So that's 50%, right? So half the quizzes, half the 2 things. Catch you later. I hope this video worked. I hope that music playing in the background is the right volume and not annoying. But I'm not an expert. I'm trying to get a little bit sharper each time, hopefully, or at least not actively worse. Hope you're doing well and have a great week. And I'll see you next week I'll have another presentation for you next week. All right. Take care and have a good weekend.